Well, welcome to Romera Records Virtual Cast. Today we have on Dave. How's it going, man?
Hey man, thanks for having me on, Jackson. It's all good.
Awesome. So, yeah, I found you from Pod Match, and we matched up there, and I was just interested in the stuff you do, so I figured I'd have you on. So, yeah, just if you could, I guess, just give everybody a lesson on the things you do and how you kind of started.
The smart aleck answer to that is, I took that left hand turn at Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny used to say, right? Bro, it's been a ride, man. I mean, how do you get to this point in life? How do you end up influencing, tens, literally hundreds of thousands of people? I struggle with saying hundreds of thousands because that's not believable, but it's true. Over the 3 decades that I've been creating life-changing paradigm shift experiences for corporate America and private parties and celebrities and Olympians and so on, it's just like, how the hell did you get here? It's like, what? How do you do that? It's almost like a dream. What happened was is that my in my younger days, my lifestyle, what I was adopted when I was 5 years old, and so my mother, who tried to raise me, she just really couldn't, and she worked really hard, but she had two other sons and a cousin and a grandmother, her mother, we were all living in a one-bedroom apartment, man, in Hollywood, California. And mom was up the street at the Roosevelt Hotel working as a server. And she knew hard work, man. She came out of that generation, right? The Depression, the World War II, all that whole generation was just phenomenal, right? Because what a lot of people don't realize, when all the men were fighting the war, what were the women doing? Everything, man. They built Jeeps and tanks. My mom was known as Rosie the Riveter, man. She worked for McDonnell Douglas. She was building airplanes out on the wing, driving rivets, right? So they were very resourceful. But again, how do you feed six people off a salary of a server even though it was a nice hotel? So when I was five, they put me up for adoption. Her oldest sister adopted me, her and her husband. And then when I was 11 years old, 6 years after they adopted me, man, they basically set me down and said, "Hey, we're not your parents." Well, I didn't know that. I don't even know what that means. What do you mean you're not my parents? Of course you're my parents.
Mm.
So that caused, a really interesting turn in my life. And then shortly after they told me this, they both mom and dad that were raising me started drinking. And that's when life took a really hard turn. And so as I struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction over the following years, I didn't get to a point where I said, "That's it, I'm done. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore." That didn't happen until June 8th of 1988. I got kicked out of high school. I was hanging with wrong people. I mean, it accumulates. There's lots of people out there that struggle with drugs and alcohol. They know what's going on when I talk about this. I think we all know somebody in our life or our circle of influence that's got a drug or an alcohol problem, right? So it's not like it's a rare thing. It's an epidemic, if you ask me. So that just led me to one day waking up and saying, "Okay, June 8th, okay, we're done. We're not going to do this anymore. What are we going to do?" Well, we have to stop the pain. I know that the emotional and physical pain's got to stop, or I don't want to exist. And so as I struggled with what I was going to do with that, I ended up calling Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was the ultimate phone call for me. I got this really cool woman on the phone, man. And over the years, Jackson, I've affectionately nicknamed her Madge. And the only reason I nicknamed her Madge is because she talked like this. She was answering the phones for AA, and she was probably smoking 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day, right? So her voice was really raspy. But man, what an incredible human being. There she was answering the phone for Alcoholics Anonymous. And she was a gatekeeper. So basically, her job was to interview me and see if I warranted her calling somebody to come pick me up to take me to an AA meeting. And
Mm.
obviously, I passed the test. She called a guy named Lauren, came and picked me up. I went to 4 meetings on June 8th of 1988. I showed up that day grossly addicted to heroin and cocaine and alcohol and fighting like a tuna, angry, pissed off. It's not like you show up to AA at the top of your game, right? It's not the way it works. But man, I was an all men's group. And so they just loved me, man, until I could love myself. And they took really good care of me, and they helped keep me sober one day at a time. And it stuck. And I've never had a drink or a drug since, right? Last year it was 35 years. This year it'll be 36 if I don't die and I don't use, right? Which I think I'm in pretty good shape at this point as far as the not using part. So what happened with that, right? I was up late at night all the time because I had insomnia. So I'm going to AA, and one night I'm up late, and there he is, man. The man himself, Mr. Infomercial, if you will, of the 1990s, man. In the 1980s, a young, vibrant Tony Robbins, right? Mr. Motivation is selling his program, Personal Power. And so he was selling it to people at 3 o'clock in the morning because that's all the challenging people are, right? Who have problems. And so, he sold me, man. He got me on two things. One, he said, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And I went, what? Dude, are you talking to me? You've got to be talking to me, right? Because, when you're doing drugs and alcohol, that's exactly what you're doing. You're either trying to find a little bit of pleasure or you're running from pain, right? So that really resonated with me when he said that. And then the other thing that really got me was he said, how do humans make decisions? They do them one of two ways. They're either done by inspiration or desperation. And I went, whoa, okay, he's talking to me again. I'm pretty desperate. And so, yeah, man, I bought his program. And to date this, man, now understand, this is in like 1988, 1989, right? And it came in this big box. And it was a 30-day program. So that came on little white things called cassette tapes, right? And some of your listeners are going to go, what are those? Right? Go to the Smithsonian, man. They're there. They're right next to reel and 8-track tapes.
Yeah.
So you plug one in every day and you went through it. Well, you know what, Jackson? I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. And so there was my introduction deep into the personal development industry. And I ended up loaning my program to a dear friend of mine. I call him Dan the Butcher. We lost Dan a couple of months ago. Interestingly enough, his daughter's here today at my house, and we're creating, a video of his life, which is really interesting. One of the greatest men I've ever known. So anyway, he got involved. He got involved with Tony too. He read his book, and I loaned him my tape program. And 7 years later, Dan called me on the phone and said, "Hey man, Tony Robbins is coming to town. You want to go with me?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's go." He goes, "Great." So he calls me back like an hour later. He goes, "All right, it's all done. I took care of everything. We pick up the tickets at will call. They told us to do a couple things. Number one, drink a lot of water. You definitely want to stay hydrated. Number two, you want to bring snacks because you're going to spend a lot of time in the room." Well, I'm laughing because anybody that's ever been to a Tony Robbins seminar knows you're going to spend a lot of time in the room. And then he said, "Be ready to play full out and bring a good attitude." Well, Dan, how much was the ticket? $695 in 1995, right? Like, whoa. I mean, what does that equate to today? Like, I don't know, 1.2, 1.3 million. I don't know. A lot of money. Buy Bitcoin, right? And so, the big day comes. I forgot. So he goes, "Oh, by the way, man, I got to tell you something before I get off the phone, man. We're going to be doing a firewalk." Now, I don't know what that means. I have no references for this. I've never been to a firewalk. I don't even know, but my brain said no. Hell no. We're not doing any firewalk, because if you take those two words and put them in the same sentence, that didn't make any sense to me. But I'm not saying anything to Dan. I'm just going along with it. I'm being subservient. "Yeah, sure, Dan, sounds great. Firewalk. Yeah, all right, see you then." Got off the phone and went, "No, hell no. Not doing that. Not going to happen." And what's interesting, almost every decision up to that point in my life was all based on fear. And what fear meant to me was forget everything and run, right? So the big day came, and we get there, and Tony took the stage at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm in a room with 3,500 people. And so again, he starts it at 2. Well, the next thing we know, it's after midnight. Right? Remember the guy said, "Bring snacks." You'll starve to death. I was in a room with Tony for 10 hours.
Oh my God.
That's normal, bro. That's typical Tony Robbins. That's how he rolls. He'll get on stage for 4 days in a row and speak 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes longer. He's the ever ready bunny, man. He can go and go and go. And you know what's so interesting? You don't want to leave the room. He's got so much powerful contact. You're like, you're writing. I'm writing everything he's saying. Like, oh, he said hold on, THE. I mean, that it's incredible. And like I said, next thing you know, it's after midnight, and all of a sudden Tony goes, "Take your shoes off." And I went, "Oh no, I see where you're going with that, pal. You're not tricking me into that." Well, first of all, my buddy that I'm with, guess what he's doing? He's taking his shoes off. 3,500 other people, guess what they're doing? They're taking their shoes off, and now I'm screwed. Right? What am I going to do? Not take my shoes off? I'm not going to do the firewalk. So now I got to figure out, how am I going to get out of this? And it's like, how did I end up here, man? And so I'm like, calm down. Just take your shoes off. And when you go out, there's 3,500 people. Ditch your buddy and go hide in the back. No one's going to know. Well, I mean, I'm going to know, right? But that's my plan.
Yeah.
So, well, it gets worse, because when he's got you going out there, Jackson, he's got you, everybody chanting and clapping. 3,500 people walking out going, yes, yes, yes. I'm walking out there going, no, ain't going to do it. And it gets worse, because when you get out of this giant parking lot where he's got everybody doing the firewalk, he's got African drummers.
Oh my God.
So yeah, man, right. It's intense. Dun, 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 dun. People clapping, yes, yes. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? So I ditch my buddy, which is really easy to do in a crowd of 3,500 people. And I make my way to the back, and I'm just going to hide out. Well, okay, hold on a second. Because Tony Robbins, why did Tony use firewalking? Why did one of the top motivational speakers in our time use firewalking at his events? Well, he knows. He did his research. It's one of the most life-changing experiences on earth, period. And he knew it. That's why he brought it into his seminars. This is a 4-day event, by the way. This is day one. This is the night of day one. And he wants to get that in, because it's going to create a paradigm shift. Well, he also knows there's people like me. Where are we? We're hiding in the back. He knows that. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you.
Oh my God.
Tony, I can't even hide out without you knowing the psychology of what's going on with me. And so I'm hiding in the back, and here he comes. Here comes this guy. And he makes eye contact with me, and he gets about 20 feet from me, and he looks at me like a dog that hears a funny noise, right? Where he's twisting his head, and he's like, and he kind of points at me. He goes, "Hey man, are you okay?" And of course I'm not okay. I'm scared to death. I mean, why do you think I'm hiding in the back, pal? Get the hell away from me. And of course I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, all good here. Nothing to see. Move along. Right. Guy immediately goes for the kill shot. He goes, "So are you going to walk tonight?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not. I'm not going to walk tonight." Again, why do you think I'm hiding in the back? And all of a sudden he goes, and here's a stranger, man. I don't know who this guy is, Jackson, to this day. I don't know. But this one guy changed my entire life with one question. And he also put me in a position to change tens of thousands of people's lives. Because without him, I'm not on your podcast today. That's for sure. And the question he asked me was, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I got no problem with that. Yeah, that'll be fun. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. Idiots. Right. And so he goes, well, listen, man, you can't really see anything from where you are. You're 100 yards away from what's going on. He said, so, and he's telling the truth. I got 3,500 people standing from me. I can't see anything. I can hear it. The drums are going, and people are chanting, and people are already firewalking. And when they get to the celebration, and they're jumping up and down and screaming, and it's like, you got to be kidding me, man. It's intense, brother. That's all I can tell you. And there's nothing like it on earth that I know of. And there's a big fire over here. How do you do this anyway? Whether you build a big fire, you build a pit. That pit's 35 feet wide, 70 feet long. And all they do all day is add wood to it, hardwood, cord after cord after cord of wood. And so after 10 hours or so, it renders. So you have this big giant pile of coals. Well, how they facilitate you walking 3,500 people, they take a wheelbarrow, or I should say wheelbarrows, over to that pit, and they fill them with shovels. And then they bring up a wheelbarrow back, and they lay 2 lanes of sod on both sides of it. That grass is like 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And then they just take a flathead shovel and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass. They call it a fire lane, and that's what you walk on.
Hmm.
Well, again, I'm at the back, having none of it. Next thing you know, as I said, I got in line, I'm walking along, and all of a sudden another stranger comes up to me. And he goes, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what? What do you mean he knows when you're ready? When he says go, you go. What does that even mean? so I'm walking along, got all these people, just kind of trudging along. And all of a sudden I get to a point, I can see at an angle. I can't see in front of me. I got 1,000 people, but I can see it at an angle. And they're doing it, man. Every race, every creed, every color, they're firewalking. And I've never seen anything like this in my life. And so my brain is just like going, what's wrong with you people? Did you drink the Kool-Aid? How did you buy into this? We're mammals. We're taught to run from fire, not walk on it. So it's making no sense to me at all, right? And now I'm mesmerized. I can't take my eyes off. It's like a car accident. You say you're not going to stare at it, but you stare at it, right? And so I'm just kind of staring at it, and boom, the next thing I know, you can probably guess where I am. I'm at the front of the line. And now my brain's going, how in the hell did you get here? Dude. And so now I'm staring at that fire lane, right? 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. The coals are on there. They're bright red. They're glowing. The wheelbarrow's there. You can feel the heat coming off. My heart's going boom, 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 boom. I'm scared to death. Well, there's a trainer standing right there. And all of a sudden the trainer goes, eyes up. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. I'm in a room with Tony for 10 hours. What's he teach you to do? Keep your eyes up. All right, my eyes are up. Now what? Well, the trainer said, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell. He does this every day, thousands of people. He knows I wasn't in a peak state. He knew I was leaving a lot on the table, and he could see that. So he got in my face and screamed at me a third time. And now I'm kind of pissed, right? So I threw my hands in the air and I screamed yes as loud as I could. And he goes, go, go, go. Pooh. I took off. Remember the guy? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I went. Well, they put two guys at the end and they kind of lock arms and they stop you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. Hell, I'd have walked all the way to Albuquerque at that point if they hadn't stopped me. And here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I promise you. Right? What are you going to do? Get in the middle of that lane with the hot coals under your feet and stop? No, you're not going to do that. Well, so now I'm standing there with 1,000 other people, and we're jumping up and down and we're celebrating, and it's phenomenal. Because in that moment, I felt I could do anything. I just walked on coals that were 1,000 degrees. I didn't burn myself. So it's like, okay, well, where's the bus? Come on, people, let's go. Let's get on the bus. Let's go climb Mount Everest. Because you really do. Your level of, your self-confidence and your self-belief and your self-worth go boom. But it's collective. 3,500 people with you on this journey all of a sudden. So there's a connectivity there, an instant camaraderie. Well, the next day is where it got interesting for me. Again, this is a 4-day event. The Firewalk's day 1 that night. Now we're coming into day 2. So the next morning I'm standing in the foyer and I'm with 3,500 people and we're getting ready to go into the venue for day 2. And I'm kicked back and I'm watching them. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Look at what these people, look how they're connected. They're laughing, they're hugging, they're crying. They're talking about the firewalk. They're talking about their fears. They're talking about the event. I mean, it was so beautiful to watch. I've never seen anything like it other than a Tony Robbins seminar. And so I'm like, so we drank the Kool-Aid last night. Look at all these people. All of them drank it. Yeah, we sure did. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Super, super great guy. Him and his wife, Mary, both trainers for Tony back in the day. And so I'm just talking to Ted and I asked him, I said, so Ted, what's it like being in this environment on a regular basis? I'm assuming you come to all these events. Yeah. He goes, yeah, I do. Absolutely. He goes, it's phenomenal. to be in the event. And you need to get yourself in here if you possibly can. And he said, you see all those people standing over there with the black shirts and the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, dude, they're volunteers. They're just like you. They came to an event, wanted to come back. And so all you got to do, if you want to put that forward, is when you get home, call Robbins Research, tell them you want a volunteer crew application. They'll send it to you. Back in those days, it was all snail mail. Fill it out, send it back. I did. And I got a letter in the mail like 9 weeks later. It said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies. Well, color my ass happy. Right? So there I am. I'm in the door. First event, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Never forget it. And so they look at your application really closely. They want to see what you're qualified to do, how you might be able to serve the greater good within that, that network of volunteers. And so I lived on a farm, so I knew how to use tools. I had 2 wood stoves in my house and in one of my barns. So I knew how to split wood. I knew how to use tools. I know how to use a hatchet. I know what kindling is. And then I also had a security and a military background. So they said, oh, you know what? We could use him on the security team to help take care of Tony's celebrities. Well, I could talk to you about that, a whole nother podcast, just that job alone. So there I was, man. They put me on the fire building team, which is where I wanted to be. I'm on the security team. And after volunteering about 5 or 6 times, they offered me a subcontractor's position in 1995, 1996, which my wife was thrilled about because she didn't know who Tony Robbins was. All she knows is I'm going to these events. She's not going. I'm spending $1,500 or so, and she wasn't real happy with it, right? So, it all came down to when they hired me as a subcontractor, they gave me a ticket so you could bring your spouse. Obviously brilliant. So I did. I brought her. She went through the same event I did. And after she graduated on day 4, we're walking on the beach. And she said, all right, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid too. This guy's pretty awesome. As long as they're going to pay you to come here and be a subcontractor, and we don't have to take money out of our pocket or our savings account. You want to run with this guy, run with it. Well, that was all going down in 95 and 96. And then in 2003, Robbins offered me the fire captain position. And what that meant, Jackson, was I would take over all of Tony's firewalks globally, which we did. Robbins also, because I told him I homeschooled, he said, hey, we'll pay to have your kids go on the road with us. So my wife, my 2 kids and dad are on the road with Tony Robbins full time, and I'm running his firewalks, and I'm a major player on the security detail. And so, I mean, you can't even imagine what that was like. My poor kids on the road with Tony Robbins, right? In fact, our first event where the kids went with me was Sydney, Australia.
Oh, wow.
So obvious, right? So my kids have been pretty abused, So yeah, it was a beautiful life, man. It was unbelievable. In 2005, that happened in 2003. I took over in 2003. In 2005, we went to London. That's where we set the world record in the Docklands out at the Excel Center. We firewalked 12,300 people. Now, I say world record, I want to disclose Guinness Book of World Record was not there. However, was it a world record? Yes. Has there ever been another firewalk anywhere close to that other than a Tony Robbins seminar? No. So, and then in 2014, man, to move this forward, I'm driving down the road. My phone rings. It's Google. Google is calling me because they want to know, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yes, I am. What can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. And I'm like, okay, well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got? And the next thing I know, man, I'm being hired by Google. And when I got there to do the event for them, I'm talking to one of the executives, and she told me straight up, she said, hey, man, I'm not telling you what to do, but you may want to think about starting your own business. there's a hell of a marketplace. Corporate America will eat you alive because there's nobody out there creating such a high paradigm shift, a life-changing experience like you're doing. So up to you, but you may want to think about it.
Hmm.
So Google's telling you to start your own business. You think they have any data? Think they have any information to back up that claim? Maybe just a little bit. So yeah, man, Firewalk Productions was born in 2014, and pun intended, we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
That that is an insane story. That is absolutely crazy. I mean,
It is crazy, man.
for you to be able to go from being extremely scared to do that firewalk to be where you're at of your own company, teaching other people and doing it for other people, that's impressive.
It, it was one thing after another, after another, after another. I never planned it. It's not like I said, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a firewalk instructor, right?
Yeah.
None of that. You just, when you've seen as many people's life change in 4 seconds that I have, what a powerful experience it is. Because I'm watching a man, and I went through it myself. I know what it's like to stand there and look at that fire and look down there at those hot coals, and you're going, what? It's fight or flight. And I'm watching them, and I see the fear on their faces. Thousands of people have come directly at me. And then 4 seconds later, they're jumping up and down like little kids, celebrating such a powerful experience. I'll tell you what, if you want to see it on video, well, obviously you can go to my website or go Google Oprah's Firewalk.
Mm.
Oh, she's a great example. Because prior to the Firewalk, she's losing her shit. She's not happy, man. She's scared to death, just like I was. And then Tony gave her a little bit of encouragement. I mean, he literally said to her, Oprah, what's the worst that can happen here? Burn your feet off and die? Come on. I'm not going to let you get hurt. He's not going to let her get hurt. She's Oprah, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And so she walks, right? As soon as she walks, man, she's jumping up and down like a little kid, just like I mentioned earlier. And then she walks off and the cameras go with her, and she gets in front of the camera and she makes one of the biggest business decisions of her life right there on the spot in this absolutely peak state of right after she did the Firewalk. She started the next chapter. Well, that's pretty common. That's where powerful decisions need to come from. So yeah, man, I've seen it with my own eyes. And interestingly enough, again, and shortly after I did Google, I went to NASA.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and then Microsoft, and Remax, and Heineken, and Chick-fil-A, and Y.M.C.A, and every level, high schools, you name it. We've done events for them. So corporate 100, top 100 corporate companies, to my local high school. And so we know people that are of that level in corporate America, the CEOs and entrepreneurs, they know it doesn't challenge you, doesn't change you. It's not going to happen. You're not going to sit on the couch and become a Navy SEAL, man. It's not how it works. And so we also know that the fears we don't overcome become our limits.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe the two most important times in any human's life is the moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. I figured my why came to me when I was out there in the streets with Tony doing these firewalks. I saw people walk that had no legs. I saw a young kid one time. He got hit by a drunk driver, lost both legs. He was a collegiate athlete. And the next thing I know, he's walking across the fire on his hands.
Mm.
What? So again, I've walked countless celebrities. Recently, at the Super Bowl, Usher was, he put on the entertainment. Usher was at my last Firewalk in 2014. He walked. He was there with Pitbull and Chuck Liddell, the MMA fighter, the heavyweight champion, right? So we've seen all that. But I'll tell you what, the most magical moment ever on the Firewalks for me is when my kids walked for the first time. We were in New York with Tony. My daughter was 6. My son was 9 years old. You take kids that age and you firewalk them, guess what? It's one of the most life-changing experiences ever, and you can never unprogram it because now in their head it's programmed. If
Mm-hmm.
I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees at 6 years old, what else can I do? So that's the beauty. That's why corporate America is all over me all the time, because, you know, they may have something going on, especially after COVID in March of 2020. You know, everybody got shredded, right? Everybody's arguing over masks and vaccines. And I love Donald Trump. I hate Donald Trump. Oh, shut up. That's not what we're on the planet to argue about. They've created all this dissension. They've had to take people and demonize them to make people hate them. Help me to understand how that's ever going to work. It's not. That's why I get asked all the time about my political affiliation. I don't have one. I had one guy, I was on stage one time and he came up after my talk and he came up, he was a really nice guy. And he's like, hey man, Dave, you know, it's really great and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, hey, do you mind I ask you a question? Oh, what's that? He says, I'm really curious, man. Are you a Republican or a Democrat? And I said, for the love of God, give me a better choice.
Oh my goodness.
How are you? Really? You think a two-party political system is going to work? Because those guys hate those guys and those guys hate those guys. So you go ahead and try to get it figured out, and you're going to realize it's not. So, you know, and again, I don't go down that road with them anyway, because I don't. So, you know, as interestingly enough, because of podcasting, I was on a podcast a couple of months ago, and so after we recorded, we were talking. Natalia and I were talking after the show, and she said, Dave, let me ask you something. Have you ever done a firewalk for veterans? And I'm like, you mean specifically? And she said, yeah. I go, no, why? And she goes, well, you already know about the suicide rate, right? I go, I hear 22 a day. She goes, that's not true. It's not even close. That's only if they leave a note. We're losing somewhere between 40 to 50 a day. Men and women are taking their own lives in our military. And I went, you know, I'm a vet. I was raised by, you know, my father that raised me was a World War II vet. He was a career military officer, National Guard and Army. I grew up in the Vietnam era. So, you know, I'm fully associated to the military. And so it got me. She got me right there on the spot. And I was like, okay, I need to think about this. Can I call you back? You know, can you give me a couple of days to think about this? She said, absolutely. That night when I went to bed, I woke up in the middle of the night and it came to me. Operation Do No Harm. And so, but there's more than veterans that need help, not just veterans. So now there's 4 categories. So we started Operation Do No Harm, and now we're doing this for 4 categories. Number 1, vets. Number 2, first responders. High suicide rate amongst firefighters. They go through the same thing. You know what a firefighter goes through every day? Number 1, they put their life on the line every single day. And number 2, can you imagine what it's like to show up at a car wreck where there's 5 or 6 cars and kids in the car and you got to cut them out? You got to do that kind of stuff. Let me tell you something. That's going to have an effect on you. Talk about PTSD. And then when you retire, then you get fragmented and you know what I mean? And so depression sets in. Same thing with vets. You know, they get trained to kill, they get deployed, they go over there, they see horrible things. And they run and they work as a unit with all their, you know, their brothers and sisters. And then they come home and all that goes away. What do you think they're going to do? Just magically put their life back together? It's not going to happen. So their purpose drops. Depression sets in. Next thing you know, they reach for a drug and we lose them. So again, back to the 4 categories. I got vets, first responders, single moms. It's a big place in my heart because I was born to a single mom. And then kids that have been abused and neglected. So now what we're doing is that instead of corporate America hiring me to go do an event for them, corporate America can hire me, write it off because it's going to be a 501c3, a nonprofit. And now they can sponsor an event. And all they have to do is pick which category. Who do you want to sponsor? Depends on the company and what they're doing, right? You know, if they're a company that builds playgrounds, well, guess what? They may want to sponsor single moms and kids that have been abused, right? So that's where we are. And the beauty in all of that is we've got our first event scheduled in Modesto, California, April 12th and 13th. The Rotary Club out of Modesto. I was on another podcast, and the president, Ed, had me on his podcast. He's a vet. And when I told him, he goes, dude, will you come to Modesto? The Rotary will hire you to come do this. So yeah, here we go. We're headed. And so we've invited some corporations to come take a look and come watch and see if they want to get involved. And, you know, I've been in the personal development industry for 3 decades. I know why they're taking their life. They lose purpose. So we have to come back and reinstall purpose. So we'll get them into the event. I'm going to have them take an oath. They're literally going to have to stand up and promise to do no harm. In other words, here's the condition. I'm going to take you out here into the parking lot. I'm going to put you through one of the most life-changing experiences on earth. It's been around 1,000 years. It's a rite of passage. However, you're going to have to promise me, if you want to participate in that, you're going to have to raise your hand and promise to do no harm. Well, when a military person or a firefighter or a cop promises or they take an oath, guess what? They live up to it. I got him, man, right there. And then we're going to do the board break as part of this process. So the board break's just a martial arts thing, right? So what we do is we get them to write something on front of the board they want to move towards, something on the back they want to move away from. I have them write anybody's name on the board that they're in conflict with, right? So if there's, you know, forgiveness or reconciliation as part of that relationship, it ends tonight. You're giving it to the fire. And then I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. That creates the rite of passage. That creates the ancestral side of the energy of the process. So we take them outside. We've got board break stations. Boom, they break the board. We circle them. They come back. They firewalk. They throw the board into the fire. We give them a medallion similar to what you get in AA. And this is going to say, you know, something like to thy own self be true, Operation Do No Harm. I'm going to have them put this in their hand, just like my sponsor did to me. And I'm going to say, I want you to, when I get them back in after they firewalk, I'm going to say, squeeze that coin. Squeeze this as hard as you can. Feel that pain? Well, I got news for you. That's just a little fraction of the pain that your friends or family will suffer if you take your own life. So the next time you're thinking about that, take this coin out of your pocket, put it in your hand and squeeze it until it bleeds. So you don't take your own life, because people love you. They care about you. You're important. We need you. And then I went to my friends over at the Zippo lighter company, right? Because if you're going to light a fire, why not use a Zippo? And so I've got a great working relationship with these guys. They're awesome. I called them up and said, hey, Operation Do No Harm. Here's what it is. Are you guys interested? And they said, absolutely. They said, can you come up to Bradford, Pennsylvania, where the plant is? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And so, yeah, they created a lighter, and it's going to say, we're going to give one of these to every graduate of the Firewalk. And it's going to say, Operation Do No Harm. I firewalked in Modesto, California on April 12th and 13th. And the reason we're using the lighter is because, well, number one, if you're going to light the fire for the Firewalk, why not use a Zippo, right? These guys are an American icon. They're incredible, right? They started in 1931 when Bledsoe, the guy that started the company, all family owned and operated, he built his first lighter in 1932. Last year in 2023, you know how many lighters these guys have manufactured? Over 700 million. So when I went to him and I sat down with the design team, I said, my dad carried a Zippo in World War II. Zippo gave out lighters to our GI so they could carry them in the war. And one of the things they found out when they all came back, they said, having that Zippo in your pocket, you know, when you're in a foxhole and you reach in there in your pocket and you feel that lighter, it reminds them of something from home. Right? Really powerful. So I went, and so here's what we did. We're going to take the 1941 replica, the exact lighter that they made in 1941 for the GIs. This one's gold. I don't know if you can see it. So we're going to take that one. We're going to powder coat it in black, and then it's going to say Operation Do No Harm, and it'll have the date and everything that I mentioned. And this is what we're going to give out to all the graduates, you know, whether they're a vet, a first responder, or a single mom. Now, obviously, we can't give them to the kids, but we could give it to the parents, and someday they could give it to the kids, you know, if they wanted to. That would be really cool. And then we've got necklaces. The other thing we do, Jackson, is we give them this container of the coals. Now, for the people that, you know, are just listening, what it is, it's a container. It's about 4 inches tall. It's a couple inches wide. If you hear that sound, that's the coals from a firewalk that are in the container. And then we
Mm.
put a sticker on the outside and it'll say whatever, right? You know, this one says, I firewalked in 2022. Well, it'll say whatever. I firewalked with XYZ Corporation. I firewalked with Operation Do No Harm, whatever it is. And then we give them that container, and then that way they can take that home and put it on their desk or put it on their cadenza or put it in their room on a shelf or whatever. And that way they can look at it and see it every day.
That is absolutely incredible. Like to be able to niche down into those individuals and know that's how the people you can make an impact with. That's
Yeah.
awesome. On top of the people who are already ready and willing to do
Yeah.
firewalk, now you've branched out and you've targeted this audience. That's fantastic.
Well, and those people need it the most, man. You
Yeah.
know, and we don't take care of them in this country.
What
I
would
mean,
you
we just
say is the most like the thing that people get out of the most? Like they say, I'm glad I did this because what?
you almost have to be in the moment and do it. It's just such a powerful experience. You know, you go from no, 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 I'm scared to death. Oh my god, oh my gosh, boom. 4 seconds later, if I go back to my experience, there I was looking down at those coals, scared to death, not going to do it. I'm saying no all the way. And the interesting part, I get help along the way. The first guy, hey man, you okay? No. You gonna firewalk tonight? No. Hey, why don't you get in line? Okay. You got me, right? Then the next guy came up. Hey, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, go. You got up to the lane. Boom, there's a trainer. Eyes up. Shake your fist and say yes. Boom, go, boom. I had three. Not only did I have Tony for 10 hours in the room getting me doing and saying things that are going to help me get across that fire, I had three other people along the way that evening to get me there. And then as soon as you do it, man, it's exhilarating. Because again, the thought is, if I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees and not burn myself, what else can I do?
Mm.
Because the reality is, fear is a liar, and you better get that figured out. Because again, it goes back. The fears we don't overcome become our limits. And so, so that just develops into a purpose. And to your question, to your point, Viktor Frankl, I think, left us probably the greatest example of human spirit of any human on earth. If you haven't read his book, it's called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor was in Auschwitz. And here's what he learned. They strip you of everything there. No food, no clothes, no dignity. And every single moment of your life, you don't know if you're going to the chamber to die with the rest of them.
Mm.
Can you imagine the amount of stress that would create? Not to mention that they killed his family. And so there was one thing. Here's what he got figured out, though. What he figured out was there's one thing you can't take from me. I have to let you take it. I have to relinquish it. And that's my attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And so he created a divine purpose. And the purpose was somebody has to make it out of here and somebody has to tell this story. So I highly encourage the book. It's not an easy read. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not a fun book, but the lessons that you'll learn from it are really very similar to the question that we're asking ourselves. What am I truly capable of? When I do my seminars, I have a, production team and, we have videos and audios and things of this nature, right? And I got a picture of a guy on the screen behind me. And as I start my talk, I'll talk for 15, 20 minutes. and I eventually come back and say, hey, who here can tell me where my friend Eric is standing? Well, it's pretty obvious. And somebody in the audience will go, Mount Everest. And I'll say, yep, that's correct. And let me tell you something about my buddy here. He's climbed the 7 highest mountains on earth. And he got to the summit of all 7. Incredible climber. Put him on a mountain bike, he can tear it up. Put him in a kayak, unbelievable. But here's what you need to know about Eric. He's blind.
Mm.
So I don't want to hear your shit. You're telling yourself you can't do something, it's bullshit. You're lying to yourself. You want to do that? Go ahead. But here's a blind guy that climbed the 7 highest mountains on this planet What do you think he thinks about every day when he gets up? Hit the snooze button. Tell yourself you're going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go train. And he goes, I'm not going to train today. I've only climbed the 7 highest mountains on earth. Come on, stop. People, I say all the time, you want to change your life, change your story.
Mm.
Here's what I've realized in life. Every single thing that happens to us, I don't care what it is, whether it's incredibly good or incredibly bad, we create a story about it. Well, you create a good story because you're either going to create a story that empowers you or it creates victimhood. And I also encourage people to be very careful who they spend time with. Your peer group is everything because you will become who you spend time with. I guarantee you. If you average out your 5 closest friends, you're within 10% of how much money they're making. It's just the way this works, right? And love your family, but choose your friends and choose wisely because, again, you are going to become who you spend time with. So,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I know you've got a hell of a show here, and you hanging around a lot of really interesting people. And they, again, I did a podcast yesterday, met a guy, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, dude. This dude's insane. He is unbelievable, the things that he's accomplished. And, he's already said, hey, Dave, I want to do a live show with you, in March. And so, my job out there is to provide. I've been given such great wisdom, and I've been taken care of in AA. I had so many men that took care of me. I've had some great people in my life that have loved me and supported me and encouraged me. And I learned a long time ago in AA that the 12 steps are there to put your life back together. You got the 12 traditions that show you how to operate within the AA program. And in the middle, there's this thing called a preamble. And the preamble says, when anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I'm responsible. I took that to heart because that's what I was receiving. And so, that's where I am. Give me kids, give me moms, give me vets, give me first responders. Let them come spend a few hours with me and my team, and I'm going to change their life. And the bottom line is, I want to save their life. Don't get me wrong, Jackson. Corporate America has been really, really, really good to me. And now I have an opportunity to make them look really, really good, right? Because when they hire me to put on one of these events for one of those categories, we do all the heavy lifting. We do all the work, and they get all the recognition.
Mm.
You bring a Firewalk into a city around the world, and your XYZ corporation, the one who sponsored it, well, you're going to get all the attention, not to mention what that's going to tell your people. Because if you got a couple hundred employees and they all took part in saving veterans' lives, what do you think that's going to do to their spirit? What do you think that's going to do to their psyche? They're going to feel really good about their company. And it just creates a golden handcuff. You want to be proud of your company and who you work for. That's the way to do it. Because they donate money all the time to all kinds of stuff. Look what they donate money to. I mean, look at the billions of dollars they give NASCAR. Okay, I get it. It's a Sunday afternoon. All right, gentlemen, start your engines. Go like hell and turn left. I get it. It's fun to watch. And maybe appropriate a little of that money and come over and help Operation Do No Harm. Let's save some veterans and some first responders and some moms and some kids.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you were talking about with having to take that message and being able to apply it to people who are being impacted the hardest and who need that support group. They need somebody to be able to help them understand what they're going through, because sometimes people don't even understand like how their life is different, how whatever some people's normal is not other people's normal, and they need to be able to understand like, hey, what I'm going through,
Right.
other people can help me out. And even like the guy you were talking about who was blind is like, he doesn't accept what other people might think is normal for a blind person to go through. He doesn't
Right.
accept any kind of pity, or he's like, hey, I'm gonna go do
Nope.
the things I want to go do because I want to accomplish these things. I don't care what factors might be affecting me. I'm going to overcome, like you said, if you want to change your life, change your story. He didn't want that average story. He wanted an extraordinary story.
Argue for someone else's limitations, and sure enough, they're yours.
Mm, yeah.
Right. So again, you just nailed it, man. That was perfectly articulated. Because if unless you've been in war, you don't know. You have no idea, and you're never going to know.
Yeah.
But you can still love them. You can still care about them. You can let them know, that you're willing to help and you're willing to acknowledge. Because when somebody talks about stuff like that, I say all the time, don't ever tell them what they're going through. You don't know. You do not know. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Um, just tell them thank you. Tell them you care. Tell them you love them and you appreciate them and they're important. And you're here to help support that process. Um, it's like people all the time. I see it on Facebook all the time. Somebody will post something about something that's going on in their life that's pretty traumatizing. And then some idiot will come underneath that and go, that happened to me too, but it was worse.
Yeah.
Shut up. You want to go post your own thing, post it, but don't come in and try to undermine and undervalue what happened to them.
Mm,
It's one of the worst things that can happen.
yeah.
Um, so, we got this is going to go viral, Jackson. We already know, we're already seeing evidence of that. Um, and so, we're just really proud of everybody that's involved so far and what we're doing. And we'll take we'll take all the help we can get for sure.
Well, it's about that time. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Go
Sure.
ahead and give everybody like some info and like websites and all that good stuff and where they can find you on and
Sure. So okay, dog, my German Shepherd over
trying
here. What are
to
you
get it,
talking about? Come here.
try
Get
to get
over here.
involved.
Yeah, he goes, yeah, here, Dad, I'll tell him what's going on.
Ooh, hey,
So
dog firewall.
obviously, you can hire us to create, one of the top paradigm shift, one of the most life-changing experiences on earth. Corporations can come in and hire us to do that. We still do that. Obviously, you can come in with Operation Do No Harm and sponsor an event. We'll bring it to your city. We'll take care of that. I have the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. That happens once a year in October. You literally can come and spend 5.5 days with me up here in the Appalachian Mountains in the state of North Carolina. These beautiful, beautiful, majestic mountains. And I'll teach you what I know. Then that way you can go back into your community, your church, your company, whatever, and we'll help you facilitate these experiences. And to find all that, just go to firewalkadventures.com. That's firewalkadventures with an S.com. It's spelled all one word, and it's all there. And I'm super accessible. You want to get me on the phone? You want to talk? You got ideas, concepts, whatever? Bring it to me, and let's work together to serve the greater good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about all the things that you're doing with your
Yeah, man.
firewalk adventures. It's an amazing thing for people to be able to have these life-changing events and be able to
Thank you,
turn
Jackson.
whatever experiences they're having into something extremely impactful for their lives. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jackson. Let's do it again sometime, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.